I laugh because every time I look down at the video, I think, is everybody going to think it's on my forehead right down the center? Working on the fence since Johnny and June, our lovely Highland cows, like to get out. Yes, Johnny can literally jump. Johnny can jump. It's our white Highland cow bull. Can literally jump over a fence. It's ridiculous. Who thought a big fat cow, little fat cow, could jump over a fence? But I've got to fix the fence quite often. So until we have a professionally made fence, I'm just not a good fence maker. I can help you with your health and stuff like that. But making fences, not so good. It's not exactly my strong suit. So don't hire me for that. So yeah, I hit myself in the head with a pair of pliers and just blood's dripping down my face. So if people have been wondering what in the world is between Dr. Dale's eyes, that's a nice little memory I can have of all the days that Johnny jumped the fence. So let me get on Facebook here real quick, try and watch some of these comments, maybe answer a few questions. But I thought this be a, let me see. What's up, Diane? Hey, Judy. Keely. Hey, if you would, all please hit the share button just to get this word out, because we are definitely getting censored like crazy lately. I'm definitely seeing my viewership decline quite substantially lately. So I want to get this out. I'm going to be trying to be short and simple. Hey, what's up, Tanya? And here's why. I'm still seeing people on Facebook comment and say elderberry shouldn't be used for coronavirus. And just as a legal note, I am not recommending that you take elderberry for coronavirus, but I'm merely here to review some scientific information with you and give you something to think about. Because I see a lot of people giving recommendations of don't use it, don't do it. And to me, it's harmful advice. It's bad advice. It's not research-based advice. I did a video, if you go to thewilddoc.com and look for Cytokine storm and elderberry, you'll find where I went through the peer-reviewed scientific literature that is available to us that we can utilize to make a true informed judgment decision for us and our families. I choose to use elderberry at the sign of any cough, cold, sinus infections, like literally anything that the immune system is necessary, especially in our kids. They love elderberry, so it's extremely simple. And I will give a disclaimer that I carry, I sell, I utilize elderberry. This is an elderberry supplement that I helped formulate with Dr. Patrick Flynn and the Wellness Way. Elderberry, honeysuckle, and reishi. So I get roughly $2.50 per bottle that is sold of this elderberry. I just want everybody to know that I am financially, intertwined in this. So that everybody knows going forward, as I discuss this information, I do make money if you happen to purchase elderberry off of the Wellness Way website. I do make money off the supplement, and I greatly appreciate the financial support if you choose to be benefited by an herbal supplement like this. So if you do purchase it, I greatly appreciate that if you're searching, don't just go buy some random person's supplement out there. Ask yourself a question. Are they fighting for the things that I desire for the future of my family and my children? Are they fighting for a good cause? Are they just making money and putting a supplement out there? And granted, if they make a good supplement, that's good to support local as well. I would say either support local, or if you can't support local, you know what, please do consider supporting the Wellness Way, myself included, and getting this elderberry, honeysuckle, and reishi. And there's a reason we formulated with all of these, because of the honeysuckle being, and I'm not going to go too much in honeysuckle, I'm just going to say this one thing. Honeysuckle is considered like, as echinacea is to the bacterial world, honeysuckle is to the antiviral world. Like, it's one of the most potent herbal antivirals out there ever studied. And in fact, Chinese herbal, like they have an FDA and a Food and Drug Administration, and herbal recommendations come from the Chinese herbal authorities, and they said honeysuckle should be taken and be utilized. That's why there was actually a huge run on honeysuckle, and why for a long time during the first part of the coronavirus pandemic, it was hard to get any honeysuckle. So all of it was being bought up. So we do have it back in stock now, and I do appreciate it because it helps me to continue to do these videos. But I wanted to talk about this because I'm seeing really bad advice that is not based in science. It's based in bloggers saying that elderberry could stimulate and activate cytokine storm, which there are 0 peer-reviewed literature studies indicating that that's a possibility. Most of the time it comes from one single study that looked at 5 different cytokines, 4 of which were pro-inflammatory, 1 of which, IL-10, was anti-inflammatory. So they only measured 5, and you need, for a proper healthy immune response, you need inflammatory cytokines to go up, and you want them to go up during an infection. Because inflammation is the weapon your body uses to destroy infected cells, kill off bacteria, prevent bacterial invasion, to prevent the virus from being able to replicate to its full tilt, full capability within a single cell. You need inflammation to be triggered by your immune system to kill off that infected cell so that the virus can't keep replicating and then burst that cell and ultimately feed into other cells being infected as well. So you want inflammation. So, but then you have to ask yourself, in terms of too much inflammation, what can we do? Well, you need antioxidants. And that's what's honestly the beauty of what God designs over what man designs. Man gives you drugs that at best can block a virus sometimes, and it may be selective to certain types or individual viruses. But it's not blanketing. Like elderberry works for coronaviruses and animal studies and in vitro studies to HIV and influenza and all kinds of things. So when you look at herbals, you look at God being intelligent, saying, I want an herbal to be good for almost any virus that people will ever come in contact with. But I not only want it to help them prevent the virus from infecting their own tissues and cells, but I also want that herb, my medicines, this is God speaking, I want my medicines to be able to protect people in their times of need so that it enhances their immune response. And this is where the bad advice comes in from that one study that they seem to not mention the one potent anti-inflammatory. And cytokines are cell molecule signaling. They're used for cell molecule or signaling from immune cell to immune cell. Here we have the Washington Post. I've talked about this a lot. Severe immunosuppression and not cytokine storm characterized by COVID-19 infections. They talk about how the theory was that cytokine storm was the problem, and this is where the natural world, Facebook bloggers, things like this, and I know I might get some hate mail from this, but go ahead, and if it takes your stress down, to vent towards me. But it's sad because it's making herbs look bad and it's pushing people towards drugs still, which when you look at it, drugs, the medical model, Washington Post exactly saying it, is that because the results were not that cytokine storm is what's taking the lives of so many people from coronavirus, but actually it's a state of immunosuppression rather than hyperinflammation. I mean, again, you have antioxidants in elderberry that will help gobble up free radical damage and reduce that free radical damage from that inflammation, so it helps your body deal with the inflammation that was necessary to fight off an infection. So you need inflammation to fight off an infection, but you need stores of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds and molecules to be able to deal with the inflammation that was necessary during an immunological response. So you need both, okay? And a lot of people are not eating enough fruits, vegetables. They don't have enough storage of vitamin C and vitamin D and the immunomodulatory molecules that are necessary for reducing cell and tissue that non-direct immunological response tissue damage. Again, you have direct tissue damage because your immune system will kill an infected cell. But you need to be able to deal with that indirect, bystander damage. You want cells to be protected by antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds so that they don't suffer damage and weakness and ultimately succumb to cellular death and tissue degradation and organ failure. You need those anti-inflammatory molecules, but your body uses those. It's not like a drug that blocks the inflammatory cascade like COX-2 inhibitors or different medications that actually can suppress your immune system because they block the immunological response too much. So they block it in a manner that is harmful to the needed process of inflammation for viral or bacterial immune responses. So, but again, immunosuppressant was really what is found. They say that it was misguided. The theory, the paradigm that medicine was using, saying that it was too much inflammation, it was too many cytokines being generated. There's cytokine storm, and that caught hold. That paradigm, that bad mindset caught hold in the natural and herbal world. And it's still being touted today. It's still being recommended that elderberry shouldn't be taken in COVID, but the flu. And then I want to be like, so are you going to test? You're going to run out real quick. The second you get a symptom of a cold or flu, and you're going to get tested for both the flu and COVID, and you're going to wait so you get confirmation of what it is. And sometimes you may actually have the flu and COVID at the same time. You may have coronaviruses and the flu at the exact same time. So you actually have both. Are you going to wait until those test results come back to say, I'm not going to do anything at all until I get my test results back? Hey, if test results were that quick, that would be a great idea. But really wouldn't even matter, because I would take both elderberry for the flu and I would take elderberry for COVID. This is me personally. Again, I'm not giving medical advice. This is just for information, and I'm sharing my personal choices as well with you. Inside, I'm also going to mention this. I jumped on PubMed real quick and I searched elderberry, and I was looking for cytokines. I wanted to know if there was any additional information out there, but I happened to stumble upon this: 7 recommendations to rescue the patients and reduce the mortality from COVID-19 infection and immunological point of view. Lo and behold, this was published in mid-July of 2020 here, just a couple months ago, less than a couple months ago, and we have this. The second point these researchers say. Now, they mentioned quit smoking. They mentioned some iodine type things, mouth and nasal rinses, which I personally wouldn't do because I don't want to wreck my mucosal membrane immune system. But hey, that's their choice. But what I want to point out here is that in this research article and in these recommendations, they're reviewing the science, they're reviewing the research. And the third thing they say is the use of elderberry supplements can be considered at an early course of the disease. And then they go on to steroids could be used, antibiotics could be used, hydroxychloroquine could be used. Policy of drug use should be changed, like giving steroids and antibiotics to patients at the time of diagnostic test and drive the system to reduce the harms of patients. So they recommend a bunch of drugs, and one of the things they recommend is actually an herbal supplement, and we'll talk about why. Third, the use of elderberry supplements should be considered, and this is the scientists, this is the researchers here, okay? Medical researchers saying third, the use of elderberry supplements should be considered at the early course of disease, although it has not been tested in coronavirus people. It has been in chickens. It has antiviral to coronavirus in chickens, which could have similar antiviral properties. But again, even if it's not direct antiviral like it was with the chicken coronaviruses, which are transferred over in similar mechanisms of infection in humans, in those common cold coronaviruses, that evidence would transfer over to its immunological modulating. Its beneficial effects on your immune system would be seen no matter what type of virus it is. If it has a positive effect on your immune system, that's beneficial to the individual. And again, that's important because, again, the idea of hyperinflammation and too many cytokines causing damage was a misguided and actually worsened the clinical trajectories of COVID-19 patients. They already had impaired and already compromised host protective immune responses. Some other things they go through is the testing, and this is why I've recommended people, if you are worried about where your immune system stands, you know what, the Wellness Way doctors, myself included, we can do literally a test that oftentimes is kind of in medicine held back and used only in HIV positive patients to look at their immunological standing to see whether they have the immune cells necessary to mount an immune response. Well, we can test those if you're worried of whether you have a strong enough and healthy enough immune system to be able to mount a response. Do you have the soldiers necessary to mount and fight that war? Well, it's good to know whether you do or don't, because if you don't, you might want to kind of work a little bit better, staying away from sick people, and then ultimately working on the underlying factors that lead to immunosuppression or a compromised immune system. They also say that roughly 50% of people were actually dealing with hospital-acquired infections. So again, a lot of the people were dying. 50% of people dying from COVID actually were dying because of hospital-acquired infections, not necessarily COVID-19 directly. So if you think about this, how many people are going to the emergency department and going to doctor's offices around other sick people in a facility that has other sick people, and major bacterial infections are a big time problem. It kills hundreds of thousands of people per year. But you think about this, if we were to be doing things that could support our immune system, so Washington University finding that people have suppressed immune systems, so that's what allows for their clinical trajectory, that allows for COVID-19 infections to get severe. They wouldn't have gotten severe had they been taking care of their systems typically, had they not been obese or diabetic or on certain medications that are immunosuppressive. So there's a lot of things that lead to why they got in that situation in the first place. But then the other bad advice was don't take things that could help support a healthy immune response, like elderberry. So bad advice even from medical physicians and from crunchy people allowed for people not to do what was necessary. And maybe there wasn't any crunchy people that saw that, or people that saw that and didn't wind up with immunosuppression and could have been benefited by elderberry, and it wasn't, and nobody died because of that. But all I'm saying is, now that we have science that shows definitively that it is an immunosuppression, immunocompromised situation that leads to severe disease with COVID, we should have been all along saying elderberry can be used in pie, jams, jellies, and teas and all kinds of things and consumed on a daily basis without harm. Actually, physiological, immunological, and inflammatory markers been shown improved or nothing going bad in taking elderberry for a year at a time. Those studies I went through. We should have been doing something good. And that's kind of what they were saying here. They were saying, is even though we don't have coronavirus placebo-controlled trials, we do have it with other viruses. We do have it in animal trials, that we have meta-analysis, placebo-controlled, double-blind studies on elderberry's effectiveness in viral infections. And we know that since coronavirus is a virus, it affects the respiratory tract. We know that elderberry can help with bronchitis and different things like that. Inflammation, this fly is flying around me. Although elderberry supplements have not been tested in COVID-19 pandemic, lectins components might inhibit the spike protein function during entry and bind, and the binding step, as mentioned above, and other currently unknown effects or less well-studied effects. We know it has beneficial effects to viral infection. We don't know exactly the mechanisms, how it works so well. With influenza, it took 90% of people and ended their influenza, their flu, in 3 to 4 days, while the medical standard treatment, take anti-inflammatories and fever reducers, took 7 to 8, 10 days. Currently, because anyone can buy elderberry supplements, again, this is from the peer-reviewed scientific literature. Currently, because anybody can buy elderberry supplements without a prescription as over-the-counter medicines, if it does not cause any significant harm, that's what the science shows. There's no reason not to use it, and it can be applied at an early course in the disease, meaning coronavirus. They say, we do know, over-the-counter Tylenol may have adverse effects and immunological responses. In this point, we should be able to guide the use of these elderberry supplements to the general population or to patients with COVID-19 as this. Elderberry supplements can be used in those with COVID-19 at an early course of disease if you understand the previous efficacy of these, meaning the herbs, and the potential adverse effects, which, when they detail out, they say basically there's really no adverse effects. There's less adverse effects than taking Tylenol when utilizing elderberry. And again, I do have a financial, disclosure. I sell elderberry, all right? So, and if you want to buy the elderberry from me because you liked the video and it gave you confidence in it, again, I would greatly appreciate that because it does help me provide you guys with this type of information. They go on again. So again, my thought there that I didn't finish was the fact that if 50% of COVID-19 patients who die develop secondary hospital-acquired infections, and they die ultimately because of the hospital-acquired infection. Had they not gone to the hospital, they would have had less risk of coming in contact with another infectious disease that strike one and strike two. Do you get me? Strike one, they got coronavirus. In essence, strike two, they likely took the medical route, which is immunosuppressive drugs. That's what they talk about in Washington University's study. They took immunosuppressive drugs, they reduced their fever, and then strike three, they go to the hospital and they acquire a hospital-acquired infection. They acquire another infection on top of the coronavirus from going to the hospital. Had they stayed home, just like that last study said, taken elderberry, many and many people would still be here today. I truly, fully, 100% believe that. Autopsy studies demonstrate inclusion bodies, pathogenic findings consistent with viral persistence within the cells present in the lung, kidney, and other organs. Collectively, these studies, and again, this is Washington University, collectively, these studies suggest that there is an inability. This is not just Washington University. This is multiple different peer-reviewed scientific studies on severe coronavirus disease. These studies suggest that there is an inability of the host to mount an adequate immune defense, leading to viral dissemination and organ injury and rendering the patient more susceptible to subsequent hospital-acquired infections. One important implication of the massive depletion and impaired function of the lymphocytes and immune adjuvants that enhance. Now, adjuvants are something that help bolster the immune response. They use adjuvants in things like vaccines, like aluminum, that can be very, very harmful to our immune response and distorting that immune response. While herbs, they have almost like they basically have an effect where you consume them. They don't stimulate your immune system just because. Like, watch this. Beta-glucans from mushrooms. Ashley just mentioned. That's why I love reishi in this. I can literally drink that. My son, when he was only like 2 years old, grabbed a bottle, it was a half size of this, grabbed a bottle of elderberry, drank literally the whole thing, and literally I just kind of laughed it off. If he did that with a bottle of like NyQuil or Sudafed or something like that, you know what? I'd be worried. You would want to call poison control. The reality is, a 2-year-old drinking a bottle of elderberry tincture, okay, it's like drinking a couple sips of wine. It's not harmful. It's not going to kill him. My son is extremely healthy, and actually he was made healthier because of that, and we laughed it off, no big deal. And I was just simply impressed that I thought I had the cap screwed on really tightly. But that's the reality, that I love herbs because I don't have to live in fear that my kids get a hold of them. Anytime that they say, I want to take my supplements, I can go over to the supplement cabinet and be like, hey, what do you guys want to do? I've been feeding them astragalus because of ticks right now this season. I've been feeding them elderberry whenever they want a little treat. This is a treat to them. Instead of giving them candy, my kids want a taste of elderberry, So I do that in complete confidence that I'm helping support their system and I'm not having to poison them. But one important implication of the massive depletion, impaired function, lymphocytes, immune adjuvants, enhanced. So again, I'm not activating my immune system because I took a drink of elderberry. My kid's immune system didn't hyperinflame, and my son had zero negative effects from drinking over almost 2 ounces of elderberry tincture. No big deal. So enhanced host immunity should be strongly considered. Enhancing host immunity should be strongly considered as potential therapeutic interventions in COVID-19. Decades of mechanistic immunological studies have invariably demonstrated that an intact T-cell mediated adaptive immune response is required for eliminating and suppressing viral replication. And they go through multiple different mechanisms of how they show that people were severely deficient. Their immune systems weren't even responding. Specific inflammatory cytokines that were activated, upregulated, and stimulated. In some stages, we'll say stimulated, but were actually enhanced during viral infection by elderberry Again, it allows your body to do what it needs to do when it needs to do that. It doesn't cause your body to do something that it wouldn't normally do just because you took a sip of elderberry. That's not the way these herbs work. Therefore, use of immunostimulant therapies to restore protective immunity in these patients might be indicated. COVID-19 patients who had severe reduction in T cell or monocyte cytokine production might benefit from agents to boost their host immunity. And it goes through many other different things. Read some more cool stuff here. The present study results definitively show that a markedly immunosuppressed phenotype predominates COVID-19. Ultimately, in order to eradicate the virus, patients need competent, active immune systems, and research should focus on such therapies to restore this vital function. This is why the other study that I mentioned just a moment ago, that's 7, this is the title of it, okay, and it was July 19th, 2020, it was published. 7 recommendations to rescue the patients and reduce the mortality of COVID-19 infection and immunological point of view recommended elderberry supplements. So folks, I am reading the scientific literature to you right now that says everyone should be recommended to take elderberry at the first sign of COVID-19. And it shouldn't matter. You get a cough, cold, sneeze, sniffle, guess what? Grab good Lord's medicines and start taking them, all right? Because we could have saved a lot of lives. And that idea that elderberry stimulates cytokine storm is based on people, I don't know if they're cherry picking or what. Like I've seen people mention the study that I just mentioned where they measured 5 cytokines and they only talked about the 4 inflammatory ones. But they didn't talk about the 5th anti-inflammatory one. But maybe they should have measured 4 inflammatory and 4 anti-inflammatory, and then we may have seen a better picture. We wouldn't have seen the complete picture of what elderberry, its physiological benefits, but we know it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiviral directly and indirectly, and it's immunomodulatory in its effect on inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. So it helps balance the system out, but do what it needs to do when it needs to do it. And that's why I love herbs, because there is no drug out there that can do the exact same thing that herbs can do. All right? Just sadly, what medicine and the pharmaceutical industry typically likes to do is they fund a little bit of research to figure out how an herb is effective, and they try to isolate a single compound, extract that out, that understanding, and then utilize that to try and formulate a drug that could be patented through the FDA and then sold back to people for thousands and millions and millions and billions of dollars. That's why they study herbs, is to figure out how they're working, try and drive down to molecular, which molecule, which compound, isolated compound does exactly what that herb and does for people that has that beneficial effect. So if we can find a single compound, that's the way FDA works. Is then they want to make it synthetically so they can get FDA approval and make money on people's sickness and illness. All right? Yes, it kind of, like, I hate it in a way. I make money when people are sick. I do. All right? I sell elderberry. I appreciate when people buy this elderberry. Please don't buy it some random person that sells elderberry at the supermarket or anywhere else. You know what? Please support people like myself who are fighting to make sure that we protect your freedoms. And I'm also enhancing your understanding of these herbs and the proper use of the herbs, and ultimately in many other aspects. And if you're benefited by that, please, I greatly appreciate the support. But man, it's like, I mean, they don't care about your life and your health. That's the sad reality. They want a drug that's patentable and profitable. Instead of saying, thank you, Lord, for your provisions that are here already. Yeah, let's pay the farmer. Let's pay the people who give you information on it, like myself or others. Let's give value for value, but let's not hold people hostage and make them think that the idol of medicine, the idol of pharmaceutical industry, is going to be some sort of savior in our future, that we have nothing right now. And that idea that there is nothing available to us right now to help our bodies fight off this infection, when we make people believe that, when they make people believe that, they are working to glorify man and they're basically saying that God doesn't exist. They are saying that Jesus Christ in the Bible is not real. It's not true. That his provisions, there's nothing of his provisions that are available to you. You have to wait on science, the God of science, to provide for you. And that's denying the existence of God. That's denying the reality of the biblical scriptures to be true, because God said he provided, and he's always provided. That's just my personal thought. All right, so I appreciate you all. Hopefully this was beneficial to you all. If you would, please do share the video, share with other friends. Grab those 2 research studies. Again, this titles, and when I get these up on the website, the video, that's when you'll get the links to them. But severe immunosuppression and not a cytokine storm characterized COVID-19 infection. So you might be able to pause it real quick, and you can read the study right there. And then the other one was this one right here. So again, these are both PubMed research articles. So if you grab, you can hit pause there, go back, rewind, hit pause, type it in. You got the studies in hand already. And you can see that they are literally recommending elderberry at the first sign of COVID infections. And again, I say this because I want people giving good advice, sound scientific advice, utilizing the information that's available to us, and stop harping on an herb when the herb doesn't do what we're trying to claim that people are trying to claim that it does. It doesn't cause cytokine storm. It helps modulate and balance that immune response, and it can specifically increase and enhance our response when necessary to something like COVID-19. That's what the science shows if the science holds true. Again, we have to trust that the science was done well. We have to trust that the elderberry farmers weren't funding the research labs and creating bogus and fraudulent elderberry science out there. So as long as that wasn't done, again, I guess you could say that, but I'll tell you that me and the Wellness Way have never funded an elderberry scientific research, so we didn't fraudulently buy science like Big Pharma does. So just gonna let y'all know that. So, all right, everybody, I appreciate you, love you all. Share this truth, don't just like it. That's the way we're gonna save lives, and let's just keep doing that, all right? I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna check out questions real quick before I jump off here. Sorry, Julie, TWD does not work at the current moment. So should we take this daily? Maura, there's beneficial effects to it taking daily. What I tell people is I like elderberry as a treat for my kids. I do like this elderberry formulation because it does have elderberry, honeysuckle, and reishi, and other antioxidants, cinnamon, ginger, things like that in there. Lemon peel, organic ginger root, cinnamon bark, which are strong, potent anti-inflammatory. So again, the body can use those. They don't block the inflammation pathway, but they support the anti-inflammatory component of our immune response that's necessary to help protect non-infected cells. So I like it because of the reishi especially. And if I was to say, like, which one would I want to do and spend my money on the most? Summer months, I really like astragalus. I think it's a great, because it really feeds the bone marrow. So ultimately, then astragalus helps to support any of your immune cells, because it kind of starts at ground zero, which these herbs can help with the production of different, or the function of different immune cells. Reishi, immunomodulatory and adaptive potential. Reishi mushroom is fantastic. So this is a good all around. So it's kind of like, hey, where you at? But again, that's where Maura, I would say, Miss Norris, I would say that's where testing is extremely beneficial. So if somebody's deficient in quite a few immune cells, I'm going to say astragalus, and then let's support with elderberry, echinacea, and mushrooms, because you're deficient in like everything. If your lymphocytes are really deficient, I'm going to go with like chamomile. If your natural killer cells are really deficient, but everything else is good, then I'm going to go with something like reishi. If you typically and clinically appear to have a lot of mucosal membrane health problems, barrier function problems, then I'm definitely going to go with more medicinal mushrooms there too. How much zinc daily would you recommend daily? I take www. Wellness Way, elderberry, and astragalus already. Zinc, if you want to be on the extra safe side, Wellness Way does have a oyster-derived whole food zinc supplement. I would like if I personally know. I hope, Diane, if you're a Wellness Way patient already, or client, what I would then say is if you're already eating really good nutrition, maybe just take 1 capsule a day of that elderberry or that Wellness Way zinc, because the reality is, if you're not strongly deficient, extra zinc really isn't going to make a difference. Let me go grab something. There's a really cool. All right. So there's actually Standard Process has a zinc taste test. I did this for all of my family and stuff. I didn't know about that till actually recently. One of the Wellness Way docs gave us that, or told us. And then there's the Wellness Way zinc. So, I would do 1 capsule. If you're deficient, then I would definitely be doing about 4 capsules of zinc a day until this taste test comes back to where you can, like my kids did. So I knew that they tasted it, because one of the primary symptoms of zinc deficiency is actually loss of taste and smell. What is one of the primary symptoms of coronavirus? Loss of taste and smell. So taking that into account, zinc deficiency or depletion of your zinc storage, which then affects your mucosal membrane immune system, we ought to be supplementing, and again, supplementing if you're fearful of deficiency. The taste test allows us to know we're not deficient. So I'm not supplementing with zinc for my family. That's not what we're doing. We maintain our zinc levels with our nutrition, what we eat. All right. Now, if you're deficient, we take more to get us out of that deficiency range, and then we back off or eliminate. So general population recommendation, that's why testing is so critical and important, because somebody could be wasting their money when, again, if you're already on those other things, I would prefer to go more that mushroom astragalus and elderberry combination, as just more of the overall playing it extra safe. Again, I would tell most people that I use herbs not for, oh my God, I have an infection, I need an herb. No, I would rather spend a day and a half to 2 days or less sometimes fighting off an infection in comparison to 7 to 10 days on average that the average viral infection takes to clear. So I use herbs to enhance, not to save my life, not to treat an infection. I like to enhance my quality of life and get over things a lot faster. Try to order the Standard Process zinc and could not find any thoughts. Standard Process, you can't directly. It's a zinc test, so you have to have a Standard Process individual that works with this. This is doctors only, so doctors only can order Standard Process directly. So Missy, you got to hook up with a Wellness Way clinic. So find a Wellness Way clinic, because you're going to have to. If you guys want to get this zinc test, you can call my office and I can ship this to you, but you have to order it from a rep like myself for Standard Process. You can't order it directly online, Amazon, or anything like that. So, so if you want that test for you and your family to make sure that you're deficient, you could use that, keep that bottle, that test on hand throughout the year. It only takes like less than a teaspoon, like a dropper full, and you can do that for your whole family. And then you can go and supplement according to whether you're deficient or not. So if you want that, 931-591-2010, or email us through the Wild Doc and ask for that. We only have, actually, I just keep 2 on hand, because we'll oftentimes just use it for patients here in the clinic. We put it into little miniature shot glasses, and everybody takes a little shot, and you can know whether you're zinc deficient. What can I do for my young children? 5 months, 3, 6, 7 years old. 5 months out, it's an easy one. Breastfeed. By far, the very best thing you could possibly do for your 5-month-old. 3, 6, 7, bottom line, 100%. Got to have the nutrition on point. All right. There is, yes, They're antioxidants, nutrition, vitamins, all the minerals, nutrients. There's great stuff in herbs and much more potent in herbs than our nutrition alone. So you can fortify their system with herbs very quickly, but you're not going to overcome a bad diet. So when I would say to somebody asking about a 3, 6, 7-year-old, I would go, like, that age group is great, like the elderberry, honeysuckle, reishi, because the immunoadaptogenic parent points with reishi, elderberry immunomodulatory, big time, honeysuckle more direct antiviral, immunoenhancing, antioxidant. Again, those antioxidants like ginger, cinnamon, and other things, and the kids typically love the flavors. So that's a simple one for that young age to be cool with and easily take. Missy says, okay, I'll contact. Awesome. I'm just tuning in. Is elderberry okay with COVID, Rebecca? Hopefully you learned it. They're literally recommending it in the scientific peer-reviewed literature. They're saying that we should have been recommending it, and we should from the get-go. So should we take that daily? Yeah, I kind of answered that already. It's not harmful. Studies over long-term, year at a time. Improvement in biomarkers. Not harm in any way, shape, or form in biomarkers. Elderberry extract is in my immune supplement. Is that okay? It is over-the-counter vitamin store. I know it's non-GMO, supposedly gluten-free, non-preservatives. I don't know. I don't know if your supplement's good or bad, whatever. Again, it's tough. How much elderberry? We don't know. So I can't really comment on other manufacturers' supplements. What are your ingredients in that one? Is it used? Some of my food allergies are in it. So in the terms, like a lot of times cinnamon may be a food allergy, sometimes ginger. If you got your food allergy tested through Wellness Way docs, in a situation like this, you could probably just take straight reishi if you really are sensitive to those. But if you're going to use it for a temporary period of time during a viral infection, like me personally, I would say, you know what? The benefits of this, the elderberry, honeysuckle, and reishi, which aren't food allergy, unless you had a really weird food allergy. But a lot of times cinnamon's tested, so a lot of people have cinnamon, some people have ginger. If those are there, they're in smaller amounts. Take some Albizia with it, with the elderberry, honeysuckle, reishi. You know what? And the reality is, I wouldn't be too fearful that there was a negative. Again, there's going to be substantial benefits in many different physiological factors that help there. And again, herbs have that immunomodulatory effect that is balancing and anti-inflammatory, so it may counteract that. If you're really sensitive to something like cinnamon, like super sensitive food allergy wise, then I would probably personally go using like the straight reishi mushroom and maybe echinacea and astragalus. Astragalus should be something more of the taken over the long term before active infection rather than at the first go around at an infection. Astragalus takes a little bit because it feeds from the bone marrow. So because it feeds from the bone marrow, it has other immunological effects, but it's not necessarily the herb that is like, hey, I got an infection, I need to take it right now. You would take this one to promote the production of those immune cells so that they're there when you come in contact with a viral infection in the future. Vitamin D is like a given. Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley. How could I get this Lilly test if I live out of the state? So Joy, if you live out of the state, you can still get the immuno test through a Wellness Way clinic. You can also call my office, 931-591-2010, and I can help you. We can send you the kit, you go get a blood draw, blood results come back to our office, we do a consultation, and any teachers, first responders, homeschool teachers, basically anybody kind of working with large groups of people who may be worried about where their immune system is, it's great to know and have that confidence and that knowledge. If you are deficient, you need to start revving up your lifestyle to help take care of those deficiencies. So yeah, you can get it through my office and we can help you even when you're out of state. Syrup to a little ones in a smaller dose. Yes, you can, Adja. Starks, again, elderberry can be in jams, jellies, teas, drinks, syrups, all kinds of stuff. So that being said, it's a food. It is a food, but it has substantial health benefits. And it's not just used for sustenance, it's used for enhancement of your health. So young kids, it is one of the safest herbs out there. Thoughts on taking encapsulated oil of oregano. My thoughts on oil of oregano are more towards bacterial infections than a situation with a viral infection. Not that there isn't a time and place, and oregano can be beneficial for those mechanisms, but it's not my go-to. Again, oil of oregano in higher doses can almost really clean you out and cause a lowering effect on good, healthy bacterial flora in the GI tract. I'll see patients occasionally with stomach issues, and they've gotten general advice or information out there on the web or wherever, and oil of oregano is good, and which it is in the right place and time, but we'll run a stool test on them, and when we get the results back, they can be deficient in tons of good bacteria, and they've been like, well, what have you been doing? And they've literally been killing off some of the good with oil of oregano. Oils are extremely concentrated and potent, so they can be, again, medicinal in a time and place, but not always the best at that very moment. So, but yeah, I know that we utilize encapsulated oregano if your stool's test and your situation clinically calls for it, it can be beneficial. One more question I won't ask anymore. Rebecca says, what about colloidal silver? I've heard a lot about it too, but I am skeptical about it. So I would say in the area of my personal studying, I've used and do recommend in certain bacterial, strep throat, different things like that. Like I absolutely would be taking colloidal silver. Colloidal silver there is some evidence out there on its beneficial antimicrobial aspects and immune, but I haven't read a ton of research on that aspect of it. So I've read it more towards the antimicrobial effects more than I've read science on colloidal silver for the purpose of antiviral, immunomodulatory effect. So that's not my personal go-to. I've really spent the majority of my career in life just, in terms of the time that I've spent studying more herbs than I have colloidal silver. So I've used it in, situations, but the reality is it's not my go-to all the time, always supplementing. That's just not the one that I go with. So thanks, Rebecca. And sorry, I can't give you a 100% scientific. That's just not an area that I've studied a ton about. Vitamin level 30, how much D should one take to increase that? So Diane, when you look at vitamin D supplementation, and again, we do have a vitamin D in K2 supplement through Wellness Way, and if you get it through my clinic, 931-591-2010, I greatly appreciate that because I am going to give you a little bit of information that should benefit you, and if you exchange value with me, I super duper appreciate that. So Diane, what I would say in terms of your level of 30, luckily you're up there at 30, and again, once you get over 30, the risk of coronavirus severe infection is a lot less. But in the general population, they've done studies that usually 5,000 to 10,000 IUs gets the average. I think it was like 80% of people would get up to around 40 to 60. They would get their levels up there closer to 60 with around 5,000 IUs of vitamin D per day. In the general population, to get everybody up to like that best level around that 60 mark. Again, this is why vitamin D supplementation is great and testing is really good, and it's really cheap actually to do it even on your own and test your levels and then supplement accordingly. So during the summer, I take less vitamin D. I might take it only a few days here and there, but I get tons of sun. So that's where testing is great. Supplementation, average person is going to get where they need to be up in that higher than 40 plus to close to 60 over time with 5,000 IU, and even long-term studies of 5,000 IU had zero negative effect. The only studies they've ever seen negative effects of vitamin D supplementation is with people typically with more of a kidney problem. They usually have other health problems. This is why testing is great. But even with those issues, it's extremely hard, and the harms weren't seen in that 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D per day. Where it was seen is injection, I believe it was like 100 to 200,000 IUs, or the 50,000 IUs and medical standard prescriptions, you go in those mega doses, injected especially, that's where they saw the harm from vitamin D supplementation, because it threw off the physiological balance. Because nowhere, no how, whether you ate a bunch of mushrooms or you got out in the sun, are you going to instantaneously change your vitamin D levels by 200,000. The injection was the problem. It was the manner in which they administered it, not the vitamin D itself. So I take vitamin D spray at 3,000 IUs a day. Is that enough to keep my levels up? That's decent. Likely, again, you would probably be looking at, you may be up there. Just test. That's what I say. It's cheap. I think some of the any lab tests now places, it's like $30. If you want to call my office, again, it's going to, because we're going to have to do a little bit of work. Go get it tested on your own. Like, honestly, just do it. If you're just going to test your vitamin D alone, just go do it. It took me years to get my vitamin D over 60, Heather said. Again, you may be taking the wrong vitamin, the wrong manufacturer. You may have absorption problems, so you may have to work on gut health and different things like that. Can we do the blood test out of the state, or should we find someone in our state? You can do it out of state, Tricia. What's great about health coaching is you can get the test kits. We can ship them to your door. You take the kit directly to a place like any lab test now. You give them the kit, say, I need to get my blood draw for this kit right here. They read the instructions. They draw the blood. They spin it down, and they ship it off. All you got to go in and sit there and let the vampires take your blood. So we can absolutely help you. Tricia, if you would, call the office, 931-591-2010 if you want to get that test kit on that immune system. Again, Tricia, if you're a homeschool teacher, if you work with groups, you're a first responder, you're a school teacher, that type of thing, right now that lab test through my office alone, not through any wellness way, through my office alone, this is a personal decision I wanted to do for teachers to take down their stress. If they felt fearful about going back to school with kids, was to do that immune panel for $200. So if you want that, we can do that for you. We are always being told that it's not safe to use 3,000 IU a day in the UK. Michelle, love to see the research. When somebody says that, say, show me the research. Because, man, I've got an article. I did a video about vitamin D. It was years ago. And I jokingly acted like I was streaking through my backyard getting vitamin D. Don't worry, they black barred the whole, crotchal region out in the video. It was a joke. But anyways, the studies on harm were typically in calcium and vitamin D. Calcium causes blood chemistry imbalances, oftentimes in supplementation with calcium for osteoporosis purposes, increased calcification of your arteries, hardening arteries, stroke risk, cardiovascular risks. Vitamin D alone did not show negative effects, except for in an injection type study. And then again, their recommendations are like, not even using the science that shows 10,000 IUs per day for a long, long period of time, or forget how many months, no harmful effects, they still go to like the 800 IU or 400 IU, standard daily recommendations. And I have no clue why, because it's not based in science. Again, if you can find me the science, I'd love to read it. Thank you. Yes, she homeschools. Tricia, awesome. Look forward to helping you. So I'm going to jump off here. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Please, again, share the truth. Don't just like it. It's the only way we save lives. We'll see you all later.